Life is a series of Mercury dreams, fluid, reflective, and constantly changing right before your eyes in a burst of light. Dive into these ever-shifting stories of the heart and find your own reflection in our art. Subscribe today and follow the flow of our cinematic masterpiece.
At my daughter's housewarming party, my son-in-law picked up my wife's old sewing chest and dropped it straight into the donation bin by the front door, right in front of 50 guests, right in front of my 8-year-old granddaughter. "We're not running a storage unit for dead people's clutter," he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. My granddaughter's face crumpled. I said nothing. I walked over, lifted the chest out of that bin, tucked it under my arm, and carried it to my car. 3 days later, an antique restorer pried open a hidden panel in the base. His hands went still. What my wife had hidden inside that chest didn't just change everything. It explained everything. Hello and welcome. My name is Walter Greer. I'm 67 years old, a retired Finnish carpenter, and a widower of 14 months. I spent 41 years building things with my hands: houses, furniture, cabinets, and one life with a woman named Dorothy, who was smarter than everyone in any room she ever walked into. She just never let anyone know it. That was her way. If you appreciate the stories we share here, please take a moment to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love knowing you're out there. The housewarming was in April. My daughter and her husband had just finished renovating their colonial in Westfield, New Jersey. 4,000 square feet of polished marble and recessed lighting. My son-in-law, who sold commercial real estate and wore his watch like a personality, had overseen the renovation himself. He was proud of every square inch of it. I arrived with Dorothy's sewing chest. It was a walnut box, about 18 inches wide and 12 deep, with brass hinges my wife had polished every spring for 30 years. She'd used it her whole adult life. Thread, needles, thimbles, and scraps of fabric she'd been meaning to use. After she passed from ovarian cancer 14 months ago, I'd kept it on the workbench in my garage. I hadn't opened it. I wasn't ready, but 3 weeks before the party, my granddaughter had asked me about it. She was staying the weekend at my house in Cranford, the way she did most months. She was 8, with her grandmother's dark eyes and her grandmother's habit of noticing everything. "What's in that box, Grandpa?" "That was your grandmother's. She kept her sewing things in it." She reached out and touched the lid. "Can I have it someday?" To remember her, I told her we'd talk to her mother about it. I brought it to the party intending to do exactly that. My son-in-law intercepted me in the front hallway. His expression was the same one he used when contractors showed up late. Politely disgusted. "You brought that here? I thought Christine and I could talk about keeping it for Lily. It doesn't match anything in this house." He glanced at it the way you glance at something you're already done with. "We just had this whole place professionally staged. Dorothy's been gone over a year, Walter. At some point, you have to let things go." He took the chest from my hands before I could respond and walked it to the donation bin near the coat closet. He dropped it in. "Derek." Christine appeared from the kitchen. She saw the box. She saw my face. She looked at her husband, then back at me, and she said nothing. She turned around and walked back into the kitchen. My granddaughter had been watching from the stairs. She'd heard everything. When she came to me later, she didn't say anything about the chest. She just stood next to me and held my hand, which is sometimes how children say the things that are too heavy for words. I took the chest home that night. I set it on my kitchen table and made myself a cup of coffee and just looked at it. Dorothy had loved that box. She'd bought it at an estate sale in Vermont the first summer we were married. She'd laughed about how much she'd paid for it. "A ridiculous price for an old box," she said. "But it had good bones." And she always said the things with good bones were worth keeping. I opened it for the first time since she died. Thread, thimbles, a measuring tape, a small pair of scissors with green handles, a photograph tucked under the tray liner, the 4 of us at the Jersey Shore, Christine about 12, our son Michael away at college that year, Dorothy squinting into the sun and laughing. I held that photograph for a long time. When I lifted the tray liner out completely, I noticed something. The base of the chest was thicker than it should have been. I was a Finnish carpenter for over 4 decades. I had spent my life understanding how wood was supposed to sit and where dimensions should fall. The interior depth didn't match the exterior. Not by much. Maybe 3/4 of an inch. But I'd built enough boxes in my life to know that wasn't an accident. "Dorothy," I said to the empty kitchen, "what did you do?" I didn't sleep much that night. In the morning, I drove to see the one person I trusted with anything made of wood. Ray Callahan had been restoring antiques in Montclair for 35 years. We'd been friends since our daughters were in the same kindergarten class, back when Ray's wife was still alive, and Dorothy and I used to drive up for dinner and spend the whole night talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. Ray was 71 now, thin as a sapling, with a jeweler's loop on a lanyard around his neck, and the steadiest hands I'd ever seen besides my own. He looked at me when I walked in and said, "You haven't been sleeping." Dorothy left something in her sewing chest. He set down the drawer pull he'd been refinishing. "Show me." Ray examined the chest for 20 minutes without speaking. He ran his fingers along every seam, measured the base twice, and tilted the box into his work light at every angle. Finally, he picked up a thin tool from his bench and pressed it into a groove I hadn't noticed along the back interior edge. There was a quiet click, like a cabinet latch releasing. The base panel swung up, a hidden compartment, lined in faded blue velvet. Inside, sealed in a clear plastic envelope, was a folded document and a handwritten letter. Ray lifted them both out carefully and set them on the felt mat under his work light. He unfolded the document first. His face changed. "Walter," he said, "sit down." The document was a deed of trust. Dorothy had purchased 42 acres of undeveloped land in Warren County, New Jersey, in March of 2009. The purchase price had been $68,000. Money she'd inherited from her mother and never mentioned to me. She'd registered the land in trust for Lily Ann Greer, our granddaughter, as sole beneficiary upon Lily's 25th birthday, or upon the trustee's determination of earlier need. The trustee named in the document was me. Ray was already on his phone, typing into a property database. He went quiet. Then he set the phone down and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen on his face in 30 years of friendship. "Walter, that land sits adjacent to the Route 57 corridor expansion zone. 3 developers have filed preliminary acquisition offers in Warren County in the last 18 months. He turned his phone toward me. Current assessed value for comparable parcels in that zone is running between $800,000 and $1.2 million per acre. I stared at the screen. 42 acres, Ray said quietly. We're talking somewhere between $33 and $50 million. The room tipped sideways. I grabbed the edge of the workbench. She never told me. She bought it for Lily. Ray's voice was careful. Read the letter. Dorothy's handwriting covered both sides of a single page. The same small, careful script she'd used for grocery lists and birthday cards for 4 decades. My darling Walter, it began. If you're reading this, you found what I hid. I always knew you would. You understand wood better than anyone I've ever known. I bought that land with Mama's inheritance because I saw what the Route 57 expansion was going to do to property values in Warren County. I spent 2 years researching before I signed the papers. I didn't tell you because I didn't want it to become a conversation about Derek. You would have insisted on telling Christine, and Christine would have told Derek, and Derek would have had opinions. Derek always has opinions about money that belongs to other people. This land belongs to Lily, not to Christine, not to Derek, not to anyone else. Lily, I have watched that man for 6 years, and I know what he values, and it is not our granddaughter. If he ever discovers this trust exists, he will find a way to take it. He is very good at finding ways. The trust is structured so that the land cannot be sold without your authorization as trustee until Lily is 25. Keep this document safe. Keep Lily safe. You are the only person I trust to do both. All my love. Always, Dorothy. I read it 4 times. Each time I got to the line about Derek, Something settled in my chest. Not anger. Recognition. Dorothy had seen it long before I was willing to. "What are you going to do?" Ray asked. I looked at the document in my hand, at Dorothy's signature on the deed of trust, notarized and dated, perfectly legal, perfectly protected. She had spent 2 years building this quietly, the way she did everything important, without drama, without announcement, just careful, patient work. "I'm going to protect Lily," I said. "The same thing Dorothy asked me to do." Ray nodded slowly. "You'll need an attorney. A good one." He gave me a name. Beverly Marsh ran an elder law and estate planning practice out of Summit. Ray had used her when his wife passed 3 years ago. She was in her late 50s, practical and direct, with the kind of focused intelligence that doesn't waste words. When I sat across from her desk the following Monday and spread the deed and Dorothy's letter in front of her, she read everything twice before she looked up. "Your wife was meticulous," she said. She was. "This trust is valid and enforceable. The land is titled correctly. The beneficiary designation is unambiguous. And the trustee appointment gives you full authority to manage and protect the asset." She tapped the deed. "Your son-in-law cannot touch this without your consent. Legally, he has no standing. He doesn't know it exists." Beverly's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. "How long before he finds out?" I thought about the party, about the donation bin, about my daughter's silence in the kitchen doorway. "I don't know," I said. "But when he does, he won't be quiet about it." Beverly pulled a legal pad toward her. "Tell me about Derek Voss," I told her. The commercial real estate business he'd built on other people's risk. The refinancing on their house that Christine had signed without fully reading. The way financial decisions in their marriage traveled in one direction. The way Lily was enrolled in activities Derek approved of and excluded from the ones he didn't find useful. The way my granddaughter had started flinching at raised voices in the past 2 years. Beverly wrote steadily. Any documented concerns about Lily's well-being. Her school counselor called me in October. I'm on the emergency contact list. She said Lily had been showing signs of anxiety, difficulty concentrating. She'd started apologizing for things that weren't her fault. Did Christine address it? Derek told the counselor Lily was sensitive and would grow out of it. Christine agreed with him. Beverly set down her pen. "I want you to do something before Derek finds out about this land. I want you to get a full cognitive and wellness evaluation at a reputable medical practice. Independent. Board certified. No connection to anyone in this situation." I looked at her. "You think he'll come after my competency?" "I think a man who stands to lose $30 to $50 million will use every available legal tool." She said it the way a doctor delivers a difficult diagnosis. Plainly, because plain is the only honest way. If Derek can establish that you are cognitively impaired or emotionally unstable, he can petition the court to have you removed as trustee and replaced with someone of his choosing. That is how people like Derek operate. They don't steal. They restructure. I made the appointment that afternoon. The evaluation was at a practice in Morristown. 2 physicians, 3 hours, every kind of cognitive assessment I'd ever heard of, and several I hadn't. Memory recall, pattern recognition, problem-solving sequences, a full neurological panel. I answered every question clearly and without hesitation because I had nothing to hide and Dorothy's land to protect. The report came back 8 days later. Both physicians agreed. Cognitive function, normal to superior for my age. No impairment, no decline, no basis for any legal challenge to my competency. I was reading the report at my kitchen table when Christine called. She didn't open with hello. "Derek wants to talk to you about Mom's estate. There's nothing in your mother's estate that concerns Derek. He said there may be property we weren't aware of. He's been looking into things." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. "How did he find out?" He didn't say. A pause. "Dad, it would be easier for everyone if you just came to the house and talked to him." "Easier for whom?" Another pause. "He's not trying to cause problems. He's just trying to make sure everything is handled correctly." I recognized the language. It was Derek's language, delivered through my daughter's voice. I had heard it before, in smaller situations. Over 6 years of watching my son-in-law move through rooms like he owned them. Tell Derek I'll speak with Beverly Marsh, my attorney, and she'll be in touch with his attorney when there's something to discuss. Christine went quiet. Then, you hired an attorney? Your mother hired an attorney 2 years before she died. She was thorough. Goodbye, Christine. I hung up and called Beverly. She already knew. Derek had retained a firm in Morristown 2 days earlier and filed a request for estate records through probate court. He was moving faster than either of us had expected. He found a reference to the trust in a county property search, Beverly said. Your wife filed the deed correctly, which means it's part of public record. He would have needed to know what to look for. But once he did, it wasn't hard to find. How long do we have? Days, not weeks. He'll file something aggressive by the end of the week. Walter, I need you to come in tomorrow, and I need you to think carefully about whether there's anything else Dorothy may have left that speaks to her intentions. Letters, emails, any communication about Lily or Derek specifically. Dorothy had kept a journal. She'd kept one for most of our married life. Blue hardcover notebooks she bought at the same drugstore in town every January. I had a box of them in the closet, 38 years of her handwriting, and I had not opened a single one since she died. That night, I opened the most recent one. The entries from her final year were harder to read than I expected. Her handwriting had changed, thinner and slower from the treatments. But she was still Dorothy, still precise, still watching. March 14th, 2 years before she died. I'm worried about Lily. Derek corrected her at dinner tonight for holding her fork wrong. She's 7 years old. She apologized 4 times. No child should apologize that many times for holding a fork. October 2nd. Christine mentioned that Derek has taken over managing their investment accounts. She seemed proud of this. I don't know why. He has no background in finance. He has confidence, which is not the same thing. January 9th, the year she died. I met with Beverly today to finalize the trust documents. Beverly asked if I wanted to tell Walter. I said not yet. Walter trusts Christine more than I do, and he loves her enough that the truth about Derek would break his heart twice, once for Lily and once for Christine. I need him to see it himself, slowly, so that when the time comes, he is ready to act, and not just grieving. She'd known. She'd known all of it, planned all of it, and she'd protected me from it until she couldn't. I sat with that journal until 2 in the morning. The petition arrived on a Thursday. Derek's attorneys had filed for removal of trustee, citing my alleged mismanagement of Dorothy's estate, and requesting the court appoint a neutral third-party trustee pending a full accounting. The supporting documentation included a sworn affidavit from Derek describing what he called my erratic behavior and emotional instability in the months following Dorothy's death. He listed the incident at the housewarming party as evidence of irrational attachment to objects and inability to make sound decisions. He'd turned me picking a sewing chest out of a donation bin into a symptom of mental illness. I sat at Beverly's conference table the next morning and read every page. He's not asking for the land directly, Beverly said. He's asking for control of the trust. If he gets a sympathetic trustee appointed, that trustee could recommend sale for Lily's immediate benefit. Derek would find a buyer. Derek would structure the deal. And somewhere in that process, a significant portion of $50 million would redirect itself. Can he do this? He's trying. It depends entirely on what we can show the court about his motives and about your competency. She slid a folder across the table. We have the medical evaluation. We have Dorothy's journal, which I'd like to submit as evidence of her intent and her concerns about Derek. We have Ray Callahan as a character witness. We need more. What kind of more? Beverly's expression was measured. I'd like to hire an investigator. Someone who can document Derek's financial situation and any concerning behavior toward Lily. If we can show the court that Derek's petition is motivated by personal financial desperation rather than genuine concern for your granddaughter's welfare, we change the entire character of this case. His name was Frank Dolan. He was a former Essex County investigator, 63, unhurried in the way that very good people often are. He worked out of a small office in Maplewood, and he called me the following Tuesday. "Your son-in-law is in serious trouble," Frank said. "His commercial real estate firm has been operating at a loss for 14 months. He refinanced the Westfield house in November, pulled out $400,000 in equity. He has outstanding debt to 3 private investors who are not the patient kind. And I found a civil suit filed against his company in Bergen County last month. Breach of fiduciary duty. The plaintiff is claiming he misappropriated client funds." My throat tightened. "Does Christine know?" "Based on the joint account records, no. He's been managing the family finances exclusively, and the picture he's shown her doesn't match the real one. He's going broke. He went broke about 8 months ago. He just hasn't told anyone yet." Frank paused. "There's something else. I spoke to Lily's school. Her teacher and her counselor both have documented concerns. The counselor told me Lily started having panic responses during tests this year, something she never had before. The teacher described a parent-teacher conference in February where Derek spent the entire meeting asking about Lily's academic ranking relative to other students. Never once asked about how she was doing emotionally. When the teacher mentioned Lily seemed anxious, Derek said she needed to toughen up and left. I closed my eyes. "There's a video," Frank said quietly. "School hallway camera. From 3 weeks ago. Lily forgot a permission slip. Derek was picking her up. Do you want to see it?" I drove to Frank's office that afternoon. The footage was 30 seconds long. Lily at 8 years old, small and careful in her school jacket, handing Derek the forgotten permission slip in the hallway, already apologizing before he'd said a word. His response was quiet enough that the audio didn't fully capture it, but his body language was a wall. She shrank. She stood with her shoulders pulled in, making herself small in the exact way a child makes herself small when she has learned that being seen is sometimes dangerous. When Derek walked away toward the exit, Lily stood in the hallway alone for a moment before following. In that moment, her face was the face of a child who has already learned not to expect comfort. I had to set Frank's laptop down and look away. "That's my granddaughter," I said. "I know. Dorothy saw this coming. Her journal entries will be very powerful in court," Frank said. "Combined with the school documentation and Derek's financial records, Beverly has what she needs." I nodded slowly. Then my phone rang. Derek, calling from his cell phone on a Saturday morning. I looked at Frank. He held up one finger. I answered and put it on speaker. "Walter." His voice was cordial in the practiced way of men who've had to be cordial about difficult things. "I think we got off on the wrong foot with this legal process. I'd like to sit down with you directly, just the two of us, and work something out before this becomes adversarial. I'm listening. The land in Warren County is a significant asset. You've been carrying the weight of managing Dorothy's estate alone for over a year. That's a lot of responsibility for someone your age in your situation. I'm not questioning your intentions. I'm questioning whether this is the kind of stress you need." He paused. "I'm proposing that we agree jointly to sell the land and put the proceeds into a managed account for Lily's future. Clean, simple, done. She gets the money when she turns 18. Everyone moves on. Not 25. 18. 10 years earlier than Dorothy had specified. And you would manage this account? I have the financial background too, Derek." I kept my voice steady. "Dorothy left specific instructions. I intend to follow them." His tone changed. Still controlled, but with something harder underneath it. "Walter, I want to be direct with you. Christine and I are Lily's parents. We make decisions about Lily's future. You are her grandfather. That's a meaningful role and I respect it. But it isn't the same thing as having legal authority over a $50 million asset." A pause, weighted and deliberate. "There are people in my position who might suggest you're not equipped to handle that kind of responsibility. I haven't said that. I'm trying to work with you. But that conversation could happen if we can't find common ground." The conservatorship threat, delivered in the language of generosity. "Thank you for calling, Derek," I said. "Beverly Marsh will be in touch with your attorneys." I hung up. Frank was already writing. We got all of it, he said. The hearing was scheduled for a Friday morning in Warren County Family Court. Beverly had filed counter-motions the week before. A petition opposing the trustee removal, a motion submitting Dorothy's journals and the school documentation as evidence, and a separate petition requesting a guardian ad litem for Lily, given the documented concerns about her welfare. Derek arrived with 2 attorneys. Christine sat beside him. She looked at me once when she came in, and then looked at the table in front of her. She had her mother's dark eyes and nothing of her mother's courage, and I had spent 14 months grieving both losses. The judge was a man named Hargrove, late 50s, methodical and unhurried. He reviewed the filings for several minutes before he looked up. "Mr. Voss," he said, "you've petitioned this court to remove Walter Greer as trustee of the Dorothy Greer Revocable Land Trust on the grounds of incompetence and mismanagement. Present your evidence." Derek's lead attorney was a smooth and experienced man who'd clearly done this before. He submitted Derek's affidavit, a declaration from a psychiatrist I'd never met or spoken to, and several character statements from people I barely knew. The psychiatrist's declaration was the worst of it. Observed behavior consistent with prolonged grief, related cognitive disruption, inability to make rational decisions regarding significant assets, pattern of emotional instability. Beverly stood for cross-examination. "Dr. Fielding, did you conduct an in-person evaluation of Mr. Greer at any point?" "My assessment was based on observed behavioral patterns as described by the petitioner." "So you wrote a declaration asserting cognitive impairment in a man you have never examined, based solely on the description of a man who stands to gain $50 million from the outcome of this petition." "I formed a professional opinion based on available information." Beverly submitted the Morristown evaluation. 2 independent physicians, 3 hours of direct examination, comprehensive neurological panel. She read the conclusion aloud. "Normal to superior cognitive function for age. No impairment. No basis for any restriction of legal capacity." She slid the report to Judge Hargrove. He read it without expression. "Doctor." Fielding was excused. Derek took the stand. He was composed and credible, and spoke about Lily's future with the fluency of a man who had rehearsed. Beverly let him finish. "Mr. Voss, is it true your commercial real estate firm has been operating at a net loss for the past 14 months? His composure held. "We've had a challenging cycle in the market. Is it true you refinanced your family home in November and withdrew $400,000 in equity? We made a strategic financial decision. Is it true you are currently named as a defendant in a civil suit in Bergen County, alleging breach of fiduciary duty and misappropriation of client funds?" Derek's attorney objected. Beverly noted the objection and moved on without waiting for the ruling. "Mr. Voss, you testified that you are concerned about the responsible management of a significant asset on behalf of your daughter Lily. Is that correct?" "It is." "Can you tell the court the name of Lily's school counselor?" Silence. "Her teacher's name?" More silence. "The name of any adult outside your household who Lily regularly confides in?" Derek's jaw tightened. "I don't see the relevance." "Your wife's father can name all 3, Beverly said, "because he has attended every school conference Lily's current teacher has held. He is listed on the school's emergency contact sheet. He has a relationship with the counselor who has documented concerns about Lily's anxiety. He knows his granddaughter." She turned to the judge. "The petitioner does not know who his daughter's counselor is. He is asking this court to remove the one person this child trusts most so that he can access an asset he needs to cover his personal financial losses." Beverly submitted Frank's financial report, the Bergen County civil suit, the refinancing documents, 14 months of operating losses, the recording of Derek's phone call to me in which he explicitly referenced my age and suggested my competency could become a question if I didn't cooperate. She submitted Dorothy's journal entries. She played Frank's hallway video. The courtroom was very quiet during those 30 seconds. Judge Hargrove watched it twice. He looked at Derek, then at Christine, then at me. He looked at the footage one more time. Then he turned the screen away and removed his reading glasses. "Mrs. Voss," he said to Christine, Did you know about the financial situation your husband has described in these documents? Christine's voice was barely audible. No, Your Honor. Did you know he filed this petition? A longer pause. Something moved across Christine's face. I'd seen that expression before. On Dorothy's face. Years ago. When she'd first begun to understand what her son-in-law was. Judge Hargrove set down the financial report. The petition to remove trustee is denied, he said. The Dorothy Greer Revocable Land Trust will remain under the management of Walter Greer, who has demonstrated both competence and unwavering commitment to the beneficiary's welfare. Furthermore, I am referring the financial documentation submitted today to the Bergen County Attorney's Office for review. I am also ordering a formal welfare evaluation for the minor child Lily Voss by a court-appointed child psychologist to be completed within 30 days. He looked at Derek directly. This petition was not filed in the interest of a child. It was filed in the interest of a man with debt. The gavel came down. We're adjourned. Outside on the courthouse steps, the April air was cool and smelled like cut grass. Beverly was already coordinating next steps by phone. Frank stood beside me, hands in his pockets. Dorothy would have appreciated the journal entries coming back around like that, he said. She would have said she told me so. He smiled. Sounds about right. Christine found me before I reached my car. She was alone. Derek was somewhere behind us with his attorneys, and she had walked away from him to cross the parking lot and stand in front of me, and I could see by the way she held herself that it had cost her something. Dad. Her voice was thin. I didn't know about the money. About any of it. I know. I should have stopped him at the party. When he put the chest in the bin, I saw your face, and I just... She stopped. I walked away. Yes, you did. She flinched. Mom would be so disappointed in me. I looked at my daughter for a long moment. She was 51 years old, and she looked, right then, like the 12-year-old in the Jersey Shore photograph, lost and hoping someone would tell her what to do. Your mother wasn't disappointed in you, I said. She was worried about you. There's a difference. I paused. The question now is what you do next. Not for me. For Lily. Christine nodded slowly. Her eyes were wet. I'm going to call a family attorney. Not Derek's attorney. My own. That's a start. I drove home through the rolling hills of Warren County, windows down, thinking about 42 acres of undeveloped land that my wife had found in a county database 16 years ago and held in trust for a granddaughter who wouldn't be born for another year. Dorothy had been patient in the way that only people with real faith in the future can afford to be. She'd planted something she wouldn't live to see grow and trusted that the right person would tend it. The legal process moved steadily over the following weeks. Derek's civil suit in Bergen County expanded when 2 more former clients came forward. He moved out of the Westfield house in May. Christine filed for divorce with her own attorney and received primary custody of Lily pending the welfare evaluation. The child psychologist's report, delivered 6 weeks after the hearing, documented exactly what Frank and the school counselor had seen. A child with learned anxiety, an overactive fear of failure, and a significant deficit of felt safety. The psychologist recommended consistent therapeutic support and an environment defined by unconditional acceptance. Christine read that report and called me in tears. She said Lily apologizes constantly, even in the evaluation sessions. She kept saying sorry for things she hadn't done wrong. Christine's voice broke. How did I not see that? You were close to it, I said. Sometimes the people closest to a thing are the last ones to see its shape. Lily started therapy that June. Her therapist was a woman who specialized in children, and who told me, when I met her at Christine's request, that Lily was resilient and bright, and would heal well with the right support. She told me the most important thing I could do was exactly what I had apparently already been doing, showing up the same way every time, keeping every promise, and not requiring her to be anything other than what she was. I kept the sewing chest on my kitchen table. On the first Saturday in July, Lily came to stay for the weekend. She was 8.5 by then, and something in her was beginning to unclench. The anxiety was still there, careful and watchful behind her eyes, but there were longer stretches now where it wasn't. She walked into my kitchen, saw the chest, and stopped. "You kept it. I told you I would." She came over and opened it. Thread and thimbles and the small green scissors. She lifted the tray liner the way I'd shown her, revealing the hidden compartment below. "Grandma put a secret in here," she said. Not as a question. She did, because she wanted to take care of me even after she was gone. "That's exactly right." Lily ran her fingers along the velvet lining. "Can we put something in it? From us? So there's something from her and something from now?" I thought about Emma in another grandfather's story. Another little girl learning that love could layer itself across time. Dorothy would have liked that idea. She would have liked it very much. We found a photograph from that morning. The two of us at the farmer's market down the road, Lily holding up an enormous zucchini and laughing at its absurdity. I printed it on my little desk printer, and we set it in the compartment beside the deed of trust. Lily closed the chest carefully. "Grandpa. Was Grandma scared? When she was sick?" I thought about Dorothy in our bedroom in the final months, still keeping her journal, still watching the news, still asking me to describe how the garden looked from the window when she couldn't get up to see it herself. "She was sad sometimes," I said, "but I don't think she was scared. She had things she was working on, protecting me, yes, and trusting me to finish what she started." Lily leaned against my arm the way she sometimes did, without asking, without making a production of it, just placing herself beside me as if that was simply where she belonged. We sat like that for a while, the sewing chest between us on the table, holding 40 years of ordinary Saturdays and one extraordinary secret. Outside, the July light came through the kitchen window the same way it always had, unhurried and plain and full of everything that doesn't need to be said out loud. Months passed. Lily's therapy continued, and the reports were good. Christine was finding her way toward a version of herself that didn't require Derek's approval to exist, which was slow and sometimes painful but real. Derek's legal troubles grew in their own direction and no longer required my attention. The land in Warren County remained what Dorothy had always intended it to be, a foundation built on patience, love, and the kind of quiet planning that never makes headlines. Every Sunday evening when Lily was with me, we wound the old music box I'd found at an estate sale and placed on the shelf in her room. It played a simple melody that neither of us knew the name of, but that we had decided together was her grandmother's song. Lily had stopped apologizing for things she hadn't done wrong. She still flinched at sudden sounds sometimes, and she still asked permission before reaching for things even when I'd told her 100 times she didn't need to. But there were also mornings when she came downstairs singing to herself, not performing, not trying to please anyone, just making sound because she felt like it. And those mornings were worth every hard thing that had come before. I am 67 years old. I built my life with my hands, and with a woman who was wiser than I gave her credit for, and who loved me enough to plan for my absence from her plans. I did not ask to become the person standing between my granddaughter and harm. I did not feel equal to it when it was asked of me. But Dorothy left me a sewing chest with a hidden panel and a letter that said, "I trust you to finish this." So that is what I am doing. If there is someone in your life right now who is being overlooked, used, or quietly diminished, stay close to them. Not loudly, not with drama. Just stay close and keep showing up, and do not allow the people who value money over people to rewrite the story while you're standing right there. That is the only inheritance worth leaving. Sincerely, Walter Greer.